Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had a half AFO and half alpha quirk. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The air in the apartment always smelled faintly of ozone and burnt rubber. It was a scent that Inko Midoriya had tried to cover up with lavender diffusers and open windows, but it clung to the curtains and settled into the carpet. It was the smell of her son. Izuku Midoriya sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands. They were encased in thick, industrial-grade rubber gloves, the kind an electrician might wear when handling high-voltage lines. They were clumsy, ugly things, stark yellow against his black middle school uniform, but they were necessary. Izuku, honey? Inko's voice was soft, laced with that perpetual, trembling anxiety that had defined her for the last 10 years. Do you have your spare pair? Yes, Mom, Izuku said, his voice quiet. He picked up his toast, the rubber squeaking against the crust. He ate quickly, careful not to let his skin brush against the table, the chair, or his mother. Be safe, she whispered, kissing the top of his head, avoiding his neck. She loved him, he knew that undoubtedly, but she feared him, too. Everyone did. Izuku walked out the door, the heavy metal lock clicking shut behind him. He adjusted the straps of his yellow backpack and kept his head down. Most people in this superhuman society were born with a gift. A spark. A light that allowed them to breathe fire, lift cars, or glide through the air. Izuku had been born with a void. The doctors hadn't called it all for one, of course. That name had been erased from history books, whispered only in the darkest corners of the underworld. They called it bioenergy absorption and redistribution type B. A mutation. A genetic anomaly. Izuku called it the hunger. It sat in the center of his chest, a gaping, swirling maw that was never satisfied. It didn't want food, it didn't want water. It wanted essence. It wanted the hum of electricity from street lamps, the life force of wilting flowers, and most terrifying of all, the quirks of other people. As he walked toward Aldera Junior High, Izuku tightened his fists inside the gloves. He could feel the quirks of the people passing him on the street. They felt like distinct hums of radiation. A woman with a water hose finger felt like a cool stream. A man with extendable eyes felt like stretching rubber. The hunger pulled at them, a magnetic force begging Izuku to reach out, to touch, to take control, he told himself, reciting the mantra he had developed with his mother. I am the dam, not the river. I am the vault, not the thief. He kept his eyes on his red shoes. He just had to get through the day without hurting anyone. The classroom at Aldera Junior High was a chaotic symphony of teenage hormones and minor quirk displays. Students laughed, shouted, and showed off. But as soon as Izuku stepped through the sliding door, the volume dropped. It wasn't the mocking silence reserved for the quirkless. It was the wary silence of a herd of gazelles watching a lion walk to the waterhole. Izuku made his way to his desk in the back. He sat down, placing his hands flat on the desk surface, the rubber insulating him from the wood. All right, settle down, you hellions, the teacher announced, slapping a stack of papers onto his podium. You're all third years now. It's time to think seriously about your futures. He picked up the stack, grinning. I would hand out these career aptitude forms, but who am I kidding? You all want to be heroes, don't you? The class erupted. Hands shot into the air, accompanied by flashes of fire, elongating fingers, and floating objects. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said, waving them down. But remember, public quirk usage is against the rules. Keep it in your pants, Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo sat with his feet up on his desk, a sneer plastered across his face. Teach, don't lump me in with these extras. They'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some D-lister. I'm going for the big leagues. I'm going to surpass All Might. Ah, yes, the teacher mused. Bakugo, you're aiming for Yui High, correct? The class murmured in awe. Yui was the pinnacle, the fortress of dreams. And the teacher continued, his eyes sliding to the back of the room, landing on the boy with the yellow gloves. It seems Midoriya is also applying to Yui. The silence returned. It was heavy, suffocating. Then, a chair screeched. Bakugo slammed his hand onto his desk, a small explosion popping against the wood. Deku! Izuku flinched, shrinking into his shoulders. Keikaken. Bakugo stalked down the aisle. The other students parted like the Red Sea, terrified of being caught in the crossfire. Bakugo stopped in front of Izuku's desk, smoke curling from his palms. "You think you can stand in the same ring as me?" Bakugo hissed, his voice low and dangerous. "With that freak show power of yours? It's not against the rules," Izuku stammered, looking up. His green eyes were wide, fearful. "They have a general studies course, and—" "Don't give me that crap!" Bakugo kicked Izuku's desk. "You're a parasite, Deku. You don't have a power of your own. You just wait to steal someone else's glory. You're a villain in the making." "I'm not." Izuku stood up, forgetting himself. "I've never stolen a quirk." "Never. Only because you're too scared to take off the kitty gloves," Bakugo scoffed. He reached out, grabbing the front of Izuku's uniform. Instinct flared. The hunger in Izuku's chest roared. It sensed the volatile, nitroglycerin-sweet energy of Bakugo's explosion. It was so close. It was so powerful. The void demanded to be filled. "Take it," a dark whisper echoed in the back of Izuku's mind. "Take it and crush him," Izuku gasped, squeezing his eyes shut. He yanked his hands back, holding them behind his body to ensure he didn't accidentally brush Bakugo's skin. The lights in the classroom flickered ominously as Izuku's distress caused his passive absorption to spike, draining the ambient electricity from the room's wiring. "Stop it, Midoriya!" the teacher barked, looking at the flickering lights with disdain. "Stop draining the school's power grid or I'll send you to the principal again." Bakugo shoved him back into his chair, looking disgusted. "Look at you. You can't even control your own leaks. Don't apply to UA, Deku. You'll just end up killing someone." Bakugo turned and walked away. Izuku slumped in his chair, the flickering lights stabilizing. He looked at his gloved hands, tears stinging the corners of his eyes. He's right, Izuku thought, the bitterness of the truth tasting like ash. "I'm not a hero. I'm a black hole looking for a star to swallow." The walk home was lonely. It usually was. Izuku took the long route, the one that went under the underpass, avoiding the main shopping district where crowds meant a higher risk of accidental contact. He walked with his notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future number 13, clutched to his chest. He had spent years analyzing heroes, dissecting their quirks, their fighting styles, their weaknesses. It was his way of participating in a world he felt locked out of. If he couldn't use his quirks safely, maybe he could be a hero with his mind. But even that felt like a lie today. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The voice was wet, gurgling. Izuku froze. He turned slowly toward the manhole cover behind him. Green slime oozed out, expanding, rising, forming a pair of manic eyes and a mouth full of jagged, yellow teeth. "You'll do nicely," the villain hissed. Before Izuku could scream, the sludge lunged. It wasn't a solid blow. It was a liquid embrace. The villain swarmed over him, forcing slime down his throat, into his nose. "Don't struggle, kid. It'll only hurt for a minute. I just need to hide inside you until the hero leaves town." Izuku clawed at the fluid. His rubber gloves slipped uselessly against the slime. He couldn't breathe. His vision began to spot with white light. "I'm dying," he thought. "I'm going to die here, and no one will know." The hunger woke up. It wasn't the passive drain this time. It was a survival mechanism. As oxygen fled his brain, the ancient, predatory genetics he had inherited screamed for sustenance. "Take!" Izuku's hands thrashed. The rubber of his left glove caught on his collar and tore. His bare fingers brushed the villain's fluid body. Contact. The sensation was blinding. It wasn't like touching water. It was like touching a living blueprint. In a fraction of a second, Izuku's mind was flooded with information. Quirk, fluidity. Type, transformation. Composition, viscous mutable cells. Weakness, solidification upon core disruption. The energy was right there. It was a rushing river, and Izuku was parched. "No!" Izuku's mind screamed, fighting the instinct. "If I take it, I might kill him." He tried to pull his hand back, but the villain tightened his grip. "Stop squirming, Texas." Smash! The blast of wind was like a physical wall. The pressure in the tunnel spiked, blowing the sewage water backward and scattering the sludge villain like a popped balloon. Izuku fell to the concrete, gasping, coughing up fluid. The world was spinning. "Are you all right, young man?" Izuku looked up. Standing there, illuminated by the scant light of the tunnel entrance, was a mountain of a man. Blonde hair stood up in two distinct tufts. His smile was blinding. All Might? Izuku wheezed. "I am here," the hero declared, striking a pose. He held up a soda bottle containing the swirling remains of the villain. "Apologies for getting you caught up in my justice ing. This fellow was a slippery one, but I bottled him up." Izuku stared. It was him. The symbol of peace. The man whose mere presence lowered crime rates. The man who gave without taking. "Can I autograph?" Izuku fumbled for his notebook. "Already done, my boy." All Might gave a thumbs up, pointing to the notebook where a massive signature now sprawled across 2 pages. "Now, I must be off to the police station." "Wait!" Izuku scrambled up. He couldn't let him go. Not yet. He had to know. "All Might, please." All Might crouched, preparing to jump. Pro-heroes are constantly fighting time and enemies. "Stay safe." He launched himself into the sky. Izuku didn't think. He grabbed onto All Might's cargo pants, his grip iron tight. "Hey! Let go! I love my fans, but this is excessive." All Might shouted as they soared over the city. "If I let go, I'll die." Izuku screamed, his cheeks flapping in the wind. "Oh. Good point." They landed on a rooftop a few blocks away. Izuku collapsed, his legs shaking, his heart hammering against his ribs. "That was reckless," All Might scolded, though his steam seemed to be running out. He coughed, a splash of blood escaping his lips. "I really must go." "Wait." Izuku stood up, clutching his chest. "I have to ask you something. It's about my quirk." All Might paused, his back to the boy. "I was born with a power," Izuku started, his voice trembling. "A power that hurts people. It drains them. It wants to steal their quirks. Everyone says it's a villain's power. They say I'm a parasite." He looked at his torn glove, at the pale skin of his hand. "Can someone like me, someone with a power made for taking, can I ever be a hero like you? Can I save people instead?" Silence stretched across the rooftop. The wind whistled through the vents. Then, a cloud of steam exploded from All Might. Izuku yelped as the muscular figure vanished, replaced by a skeletal, gaunt man with hollow eyes. All Might? The secret's out," the man sighed, sinking to the ground. He lifted his shirt, revealing a grotesque, spiderweb scar on his side. 5 years ago, a villain did this to me. Respiratory system destroyed. Stomach removed. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day." Izuku covered his mouth. 5 years ago? Was it Toxic Chainsaw? "You know your stuff," All Might chuckled darkly. "But no. This was a villain the world doesn't know. A villain who ruled the shadows." All Might's blue eyes bored into Izuku's. They were serious, lacking the usual mirth. "You asked if you can be a hero with a dangerous quirk," All Might said softly. "This wound, it was given to me by a man who could steal quirks. A man who took and took until he was a god." Izuku felt the blood drain from his face. "A man, like me? Power is not inherently evil, young man," All Might said, but there was a hesitation in his voice. "But the hunger for power, that is a slippery slope. Pro-heroes risk their lives every day. Some quirks are just poorly suited for this line of work. If your body demands you to hurt others to function, then perhaps..." He looked away, unable to meet the boy's devastated gaze. "Perhaps you should look into becoming a police officer. Or a doctor. They save people too, in their own way. It's a noble life. And less tempted." All Might stood up and walked toward the stairwell door. "It's good to dream, kid. But you have to be realistic." The door clicked shut. Izuku stood alone on the roof. The words echoed in his mind. Be realistic. Even the symbol of peace looked at him and saw the shadow of a villain. Izuku looked at his hands. The hunger pulsed, a dull ache of rejection. "See?" It seemed to whisper. "They don't want you. Only I want you." The explosion shook the ground beneath his feet. Izuku didn't remember walking off the roof. He didn't remember navigating the streets. He was in a daze, a hollow shell moving on autopilot. But the explosion woke him up. He looked up. Smoke was billowing from the Tatooine shopping district. A villain attack? Despite everything, despite Bakugo's cruelty, despite All Might's rejection, despite his own fear, Izuku's feet moved. He ran toward the smoke. When he arrived, the scene was a nightmare. The alleyway was an inferno. The sludge villain, the one All Might had captured, was loose. He had escaped the bottle when Izuku grabbed All Might's leg. It's my fault, Izuku realized, horror dawning on him. I did this. The heroes were standing around, helpless. Death arms couldn't get close. Kamui Woods had no room to operate. Empty Lady couldn't fit, and in the center of the flames, the sludge held a hostage. Explosions popped and cracked, keeping the heroes at bay. The hostage was thrashing, screaming without sound. Through the muck, Izuku saw a pair of terrified, furious red eyes. Kaken, the hunger roared. It wasn't the selfish desire to feed this time. It was a reaction to the raw power exploding in the alley. Bakugo's quirk was going critical, feeding the fires, and the sludge villain was trying to suffocate him to take the body. The heroes were doing nothing. All Might wasn't here. Be realistic, the voice said. No, Izuku thought. The police barricade tape fluttered. Izuku ducked under it. Hey! Stop! You'll get killed! Death Arms shouted. Izuku didn't listen. He sprinted toward the inferno. The heat was blistering. His rubber gloves were already slick with sweat, but the left one was torn. What do I do? What do I do? He threw his backpack at the villain. It struck the sludge in the eye. The villain recoiled, his grip loosening just enough for Bakugo to gasp for air. Deku? Bakugo wheezed, his eyes wide with confusion. Why are you? My legs moved on their own. Izuku screamed, tears streaming down his face. He reached the villain. He clawed at the sludge, trying to pull Bakugo free. You again! The villain roared, recovering from the backpack strike. He raised a massive tentacle of sludge, aiming to crush Izuku flat. I'll kill you both. Izuku looked at the incoming blow. He looked at Bakugo, who was suffocating. He couldn't win with strength. He had none. He couldn't win with strategy. There was no time. He only had one thing. The curse. The void. Take it. This time, Izuku didn't fight the voice. He didn't embrace it with malice. He embraced it with desperation. He shoved his torn left hand deep into the villain's liquid body, bypassing the sludge to find the core, the spark, the quirk factor. Get off him! Izuku screamed. He opened the floodgates. Sovereignty, activated. The world turned negative. Colors inverted. The sound of the explosions vanished, replaced by a high-pitched, tearing screech that only Izuku and the villain could hear. Izuku felt the villain's soul, a slimy, amorphous thing. He grabbed it with the spectral hands of his own quirk. And he pulled. No! What are you doing? My power! The villain's scream cut off. The change was instantaneous. One moment, the villain was a fluid, shifting mass of liquid doom. The next, a shockwave of red and black lightning erupted from Izuku's hand. Snap! The fluidity quirk was ripped from the villain's genetic code. Without the quirk sustaining his liquid form, the villain's biology crashed. The sludge didn't turn back into a human instantly. Instead, it seized. The fluid properties vanished. The villain turned into a statue of hardened gray muck. Solid. Immobile. Brittle. Bakugo fell forward coughing, liberated from the now rigid prison. Izuku stood there, his hands still buried in the solidified chest of the villain. He was panting, his eyes glowing with a faint, red luminescence. Inside his chest, next to the hunger, a new light swirled. It was wet and slippery, fluidity. He had it. He had stolen it. The silence in the alley was absolute. The fire still burned, but the combat was over. Death Arms stared. Did he just turn the villain to stone? He killed him? Kamui Woods whispered. Izuku yanked his hand back as if burned. He looked at his palm. Black veins were pulsing up his wrist, fading as the stolen energy settled into his stockpile. He looked at the frozen villain. The man was still alive. Izuku could hear a faint heartbeat inside the shell, but he was powerless. Defeated. Broken. Izuku fell to his knees, vomiting bile onto the pavement. The sensation of stealing was sickeningly pleasurable. It felt good. It felt right. And that terrified him more than death. Deku. Bakugo rasped, staring at him with a look of pure, unadulterated horror. What did you do? The aftermath was a blur of police lights and reprimands. The heroes scolded him for running in, but they kept their distance. They didn't pat him on the back. They looked at him with suspicion. They had seen the red lightning. They had seen the villain instantly neutralized in a way that defied natural laws. Bakugo had been praised for his bravery, but he had remained silent, watching Izuku with calculating eyes. As the crowd dispersed, Izuku walked home alone. The adrenaline had faded, leaving him cold and empty. The new quirk inside him felt heavy, like a stone in his stomach. He didn't know how to give it back. He didn't know if he could. I am here! Izuku jumped, spinning around. All Might slid out from a side street, in his muscle form, though steam was already rolling off him. All Might? Izuku stammered. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I saw everything, All Might said, his voice uncharacteristically grim. He wasn't smiling. Izuku flinched. I know. I used my quirk. I stole it. I'm a thief. I wanted to save Kaken. All Might walked closer. The hero looked conflicted. He looked at the boy, small, trembling, terrified of his own hands. Young Midoriya, All Might said gently. Do you know who my nemesis was? The man who gave me this injury? Izuku shook his head. He was a man who could take quirks and give them. He used that power to manipulate, to destroy, to rule. He was the embodiment of greed. Izuku's breath hitched. Like me? No, All Might said firmly. He knelt down so he was eye level with Izuku. That man took power to serve himself. Today, you took power to save another. You leaped when the pros held back. You faced your fear, and you faced the darkness inside you. All Might placed a large hand on Izuku's shoulder. I watched you. After you took the power, you vomited. You hated the feeling. You rejected the pleasure of the theft. Tears welled in Izuku's eyes again. It felt good, he whispered, confessing his deepest sin. For a second, it felt so good to be full. But I don't want to be a monster, and that is why you are not one, All Might said. The intent of the heart defines the nature of the power. All Might took a deep breath. He had been looking for a successor. He had been looking for someone with a strong quirk, or a strong spirit. He had never considered someone with his power. It was dangerous. It was insane. But the first user, the ghost of the first one for all holder, had whispered to him in the tunnel when he saw the boy. He is the equilibrium. Midoriya Izuku, All Might said, his blue eyes burning with intensity. You have a hunger. A void that demands to be filled. If left unchecked, it might consume you. I know, Izuku sobbed. But what if we filled it with something else? All Might asked. What if we filled it with something so vast, so righteous, that you never had to steal again? Izuku looked up, confused. What? All Might stood up, his shadow stretching long under the streetlights. My quirk. One for all, is a power that has been passed down for generations. It is a stockpiling of power, of hope. It is the antithesis of the power you hold. All Might pointed a finger at Izuku. I have been looking for a successor. Someone to inherit this torch. I thought I needed someone quirkless, or someone with a generic strength quirk. But I was wrong. I need someone who understands the weight of power. Someone who fights the urge to take, and chooses to give. Izuku's heart hammered. The world seemed to stop. You said you want to be a hero. You proved it today. All Might smiled, and this time, it was real. You can become a hero. Izuku collapsed to the pavement, burying his face in his hands, crying the tears he had held back for a decade. However, All Might added, striking a dramatic pose as blood leaked from his mouth. There is a catch. To inherit my power, you must first train your body to handle it. And we must figure out what to do with the sludge man's quirk you are currently holding. Izuku sniffled, looking up through watery eyes. I think I can give it back? If I concentrate? Excellent. But maybe wait until he's in a jail cell. We don't want a repeat of today. All Might offered a hand to pull Izuku up. As their hands touched, skin to skin, a spark jumped between them. It wasn't the red, jagged lightning of All for One. It was yellow. Warm. Comforting. For the first time in his life, the hunger in Izuku's chest didn't roar. It hummed, settling down, as if it sensed a storm approaching. A storm of golden light that would finally, truly, fill the void. The smell of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was not just the scent of rotting garbage. It was the scent of forgotten things. It was a graveyard of rusted microwaves, tires worn down to the wire, and plastic bottles that had been bleached white by the sun. It was a place where the city threw away what it no longer had a use for, a place that felt, to Izuku Midoriya, like home. It was 6 in the morning, 2 days after the incident with the sludge villain. The sun was just beginning to bleed orange over the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the mountains of trash. Izuku stood at the edge of the sand, his yellow rubber gloves tight on his hands. He was trembling. Not from the cold, but from the man standing next to him. Toshinori Yagi, All Might in his true, deflated form, leaned against the railing of the promenade. He wasn't smiling. His skeletal face was cast in shadow, his deep-set blue eyes fixed on the boy. For the last 48 hours, a war had been waging inside the number one hero's mind. When he had looked at Izuku in that alleyway, seeing the boy turn a fluid villain into solid stone with a touch, All Might had felt a spike of fear so primal it nearly paralyzed him. It was the red lightning. It was the sensation of a quirk being ripped from its roots. It was the signature of him, All for One, the symbol of evil. The man who had killed Nana Shimura. The man who had put a hole in Toshinori's stomach. And now, a boy stood before him, a boy with green curls and freckles, who looked like he would apologize to a table if he bumped into it, who possessed a mutation of that very same power. I should stop this now, a dark, pragmatic voice whispered in Toshinori's head. He is a liability. If that power matures, if the hunger takes over, he could become a demon lord worse than his father. I could end it. I could walk away. But then he remembered the boy's eyes in the fire. They hadn't been greedy. They had been desperate to save. Young Midoriya, Toshinori said, his voice raspy, breaking the silence that had stretched for 10 minutes. Why yes, All Might? Izuku squeaked, straightening his back. Before we begin, before I can even consider training you or passing on my torch, we must have a difficult conversation. Toshinori turned, his gaze heavy. You told me your father works overseas, that he breathes fire. Izuku blinked, confused by the sudden shift in topic. Yes. Hisashi Midoriya. He left when I was a baby. He sends money, but I've never really known him. Mom says he has a fire-breathing quirk. Why? Toshinori closed his eyes, exhaling a long, ragged breath. Because, young Midoriya, quirks are genetic. They are biological functions inherited from parents. Sometimes they mutate, yes, but a quirk as specific, as complex, and as historically significant as the one you possess, it does not appear from nowhere. Izuku's heart began to race. The hunger in his chest, usually a dull ache, seemed to perk up at the mention of his lineage. What are you saying? I am saying, Toshinori opened his eyes, the blue irises piercing, that fire breath is a very common cover story for a man who wishes to remain hidden. I am saying that the red lightning you produced, I have seen it before. Only once. Decades ago. Toshinori took a step closer, his emaciated frame looming over the boy. The man who gave me this injury, Toshinori gestured to his scarred abdomen, was not a petty criminal. He was a ruler of the underworld. His name was All for One, and his quirk was the ability to take power and give it away. The wind blew off the ocean, carrying the scent of salt and rust. Izuku felt cold. Are you saying my father is a villain? Izuku whispered. I am saying, Toshinori said gently, but with the weight of an executioner, that based on your quirk, it is highly probable that Hisashi Midoriya is an alias for All for One. You are the biological son of the greatest evil this world has ever known. The world tilted. Izuku stumbled back, his heels catching in the sand. He fell onto his backside, staring up at his idol. Denial rose in his throat, but it died before it reached his lips. It made sense. The doctor's fear when he was 4. The way his mother looked at him sometimes, with love, but also with a terrified confusion, as if she didn't know where he came from. The hunger. That insatiable, ancient hunger that felt older than his own body. Izuku's voice cracked. He looked at his gloved hands. I'm the son of a monster? Biologically, perhaps, Toshinori said. He didn't offer empty comfort. He didn't deny it. But blood is not destiny, Izuku. It was the first time he had used the boy's first name. I spent the last 2 days debating whether to kill you, Toshinori admitted, the truth hanging in the air like a blade. Izuku flinched, tears instantly welling in his eyes. He didn't run. He just nodded, as if he understood. You probably should have. No! Toshinori's voice boomed, startling a flock of seagulls. He transformed, muscle mass exploding outward, steam rushing into the cool morning air. No! All Might stood there, the symbol of peace, towering and golden. He reached down and grabbed the front of Izuku's shirt, hoisting the boy into the air effortlessly. I thought about it. Because I was afraid. But then I remembered what you did in that alley. You didn't take that quirk to become a god. You took it to save a life. You rejected the power immediately. You vomited. You hated it. All Might set him down, but kept his large hands on Izuku's shoulders. You are not your father, young Midoriya. You are a vessel born of darkness, yes. But that is exactly why you must be the one to hold the light. Who better to understand the value of giving than a boy who has been cursed to take? Izuku was crying now, ugly, heaving sobs that shook his entire small frame. But I'm hungry, All Might. I'm always so hungry. I'm scared that one day I'll touch someone and I won't stop. I'm scared I'll eat you, All Might laughed. It was a boisterous, heroic laugh, though it ended in a cough of blood. He reverted to his skeletal form, wiping his mouth. That is why we are here, at this garbage heap, Toshinori said, gesturing to the beach. My quirk, one for all, is unique. It is a stockpiling power. It has been building up energy for 8 generations. It is a sun, Izuku. A massive, burning sun of power. Toshinori grinned, a skeletal, feral expression. Your body is an engine designed to consume. My quirk is a fuel source that is nearly infinite. My theory is this: if we put one for all into you, it will not just make you strong. It will feed the beast. It will fill the void. The hunger will have something to chew on for the rest of your life, so you never have to look at another person as food again. He pointed a finger at the horizon. We are going to create an equilibrium. But first, your body is weak. If I gave you the power now, the clash between your father's genes and my power would blow your limbs off. You need a vessel capable of holding the storm. Toshinori kicked a rusted truck tire. You have 10 months until the UA entrance exam. In that time, you will clean this entire beach. You will build a body of steel. And you will learn to keep your hands to yourself. Izuku wiped his eyes with his rubber-gloved forearm. He looked at the trash. He looked at the hero who had just told him he was the son of the devil, and then offered him salvation. I'll do it, Izuku said, his voice trembling but firm. I'll do whatever it takes. Month 1, the withdrawal. The physical labor was grueling, but the mental agony was worse. For the first few weeks, All Might, Toshinori, didn't let Izuku use his quirk. In fact, he forbade it. You must learn to move the world with your muscles, not your brain, he had said. Izuku dragged fridges. He hauled truck beds. He dug tires out of the compacted sand. The problem was the sweat. Sweat made the rubber gloves slip. It made his skin itch. And when he was exhausted, when his muscles screamed for energy, the hunger woke up. It sensed the latent energy in the batteries of the junked cars. It sensed the photosynthesis in the weeds growing through the cracks. One afternoon, while trying to lift a massive, rusted safe, Izuku's grip slipped. His glove tore on a jagged edge of metal. His bare skin touched the safe. Thrum. It wasn't a person, so there was no quirk to steal. But there was heat. The metal had been baking in the sun all day. Instinctively, Izuku's quirk pulled the thermal energy out of the metal. The safe instantly froze, frost blooming across its surface with a sharp crack. The sudden intake of thermal energy gave Izuku a burst of stamina, and he heaved the safe over his head with a shout. Stop! All Might's voice cut through the air. Izuku froze, dropping the frozen safe. It shattered on impact, brittle as glass. Toshinori walked over, his face grim. He picked up a shard of the frozen metal. You cheated. I didn't mean to, Izuku gasped, clutching his torn glove. My hand slipped. It felt so good. I was so tired. That is the trap, Toshinori said sternly. Your father's power is the path of least resistance. Why lift the rock when you can absorb the gravity? Why fight the enemy when you can steal their strength? It is efficient. It is seductive. And it is wrong. He handed Izuku a new pair of gloves from a box he now kept in his truck. One for all requires will. You must build a wall in your mind, Izuku. You must visualize a valve on your heart, and you must screw it shut. Even when you are dying of exhaustion. Especially then. Izuku put on the gloves. He looked at the shattered safe. He realized then that he wasn't just training to be a hero. He was training to be a human being. Month 4. The shadow and the blood. By the 4th month, the beach was starting to show patches of golden sand. Izuku's body was changing. The baby fat was melting away, replaced by lean, corded muscle. He was eating 4,000 calories a day, following a diet plan Toshinori had written out in crayon, labeled the Mighty Meal Plan, but as his body grew stronger, the hunger grew more aggressive. It was as if the AFO Quirk knew it was being suppressed. It was starving. The nightmares began. In his dreams, Izuku wasn't cleaning the beach. He was standing on a mountain of corpses. Heroes, villains, civilians. He was touching them, and they were turning to dust, their lights flowing into him until he was a glowing sun of power. He felt amazing in the dream. He felt like a god. And then he would look down, and see his mother's face in the pile. He would wake up screaming, his hands clutching his sheets, the electronics in his bedroom short-circuiting from his distress. Toshinori noticed the dark circles under his eyes. The dreams? Toshinori asked one rainy morning, as they sat under a gazebo waiting for a shower to pass. Yeah, Izuku muttered, sipping a protein shake. The voice in the dream, it sounds like me, but deeper. It is the genetic memory, Toshinori said, looking out at the gray ocean. Your father is still alive, Izuku. Somewhere. And that quirk, it connects you. He might not know where you are, or who you are to him yet, but the quirks call to each other. Will I turn into him? Izuku asked, his voice small. Toshinori looked at him. He saw the fear. He saw the boy who checked his gloves every 5 minutes to make sure there were no tears. No, Toshinori said. Because you have something he never did. What? Guilt, Toshinori said. And me. Month 8. The breaking point. The incident happened in late December. It was freezing cold. Izuku was hauling a massive truck chassis through the sand, his breath coming in white puffs. He was exhausted. He had been failing math class because he was sleeping at his desk. His mother was worried. The stress was compounding. A stray dog wandered onto the beach. It was a scruffy, shivering thing. Izuku dropped the chassis, wiping sweat from his brow. Hey there, buddy, he whispered, kneeling down. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous. He reached out to pet the dog. He forgot. For 1 second, in his exhaustion, he forgot he wasn't normal. He had taken his gloves off to wipe his face. His fingers brushed the dog's fur. Life force. The sensation was electric. The dog yelped, a high-pitched sound of pain. Izuku felt a rush of warmth flow up his arm, stealing the animal's stamina, its heat, its very vitality. The dog's legs buckled. No! Izuku screamed. He yanked his hand back, falling backward into the sand. The dog scrambled away, whining, limping but alive. It ran off the beach, terrified. Izuku stared at his hand. He could feel the stolen warmth. It was a tiny amount, negligible, but it felt like he had swallowed poison. I heard it, he whispered. I heard it. He curled into a ball in the sand, hyperventilating. The hunger was purring. It wanted more. Go find it, it whispered. Finish it. Get out of my head! Izuku shrieked, hitting his head against the sand. Get out, young Midoriya! All Might was there in an instant, dropping the grocery bags he was carrying. He saw the boy in the fetal position, clawing at his own scalp. I'm a monster! Izuku sobbed. I almost killed a dog. I can't do this. You can't give me your power. I'll just corrupt it. I'll eat it, and then I'll eat you. Toshinori dropped to his knees. He didn't transform. He didn't offer a speech. He grabbed Izuku's wrists, forcing his hands away from his head. Look at me! Toshinori commanded. Izuku looked up, his eyes wild, the green irises flickering with red sparks. You stopped, Toshinori said firmly. You felt the flow, and you stopped. Do you have any idea how hard that is? For a quirk, that is pure instinct? I heard it. You made a mistake. You are tired. You are human. Toshinori let go of his wrists and placed a hand on Izuku's chest, right over his heart. This vessel is almost ready. The tank is built. We just need to fill it. I'm scared, Izuku whispered. Good, Toshinori said. Fear keeps the valve tight. 2 more months, Izuku. 2 more months and we kill the hunger forever. The final day, sunrise, February 26th. The morning of the UA entrance exam, Toshinori arrived at the beach at dawn. He stopped at the top of the stairs. His jaw dropped. The trash was gone. Not just the pile they had scheduled. All of it. The entire coastline stretched out, pristine white sand gleaming under the rising sun. The ocean waves lapped gently against the shore, no longer blocked by walls of garbage. And standing in the center of it all, atop a small pile of the last collected debris, was Izuku Midoriya. He was shirtless, screaming at the sky. It was a primal roar of victory. His body was unrecognizable from the scrawny boy of 10 months ago. He was carved out of granite, his muscles defined and taut. He glistened with sweat. But more importantly, he wasn't wearing his gloves. He was standing there, hands clenched and fists at his sides, controlling himself. Toshinori walked down the stairs, clapping slowly. Holy stinking. Super crap. Izuku turned, his roar cutting off. He smiled, a bright, exhausted thing. I finished, All Might. I cleared the whole thing. You went above and beyond, Toshinori said, handing him a towel. You truly are a madman. I like that. Izuku wiped his face, putting on a shirt. I feel ready. The hunger is there, but I feel like I'm stronger than it now. You are, Toshinori agreed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single strand of long blonde hair. The moment had come. The gravity of the situation settled over them. This was the transfer of a century-old legacy. It was the moment the knight passed the sword to the squire. Midoriya Izuku, Toshinori said formally. You have mastered your body. You have tamed your mind. You have proven yourself worthy of my power. He held out the hair. This is the key. One for all is transferred through DNA ingestion. Once you consume this, the stockpile will merge with your own core. The 2 powers will meet. Toshinori's expression darkened slightly. I will not lie to you. This has never been done. Mixing one for all with a variant of all for one, it is a chemical reaction we cannot predict. It might hurt. It might knock you out. But I believe in you. Izuku looked at the hair. It was thin, golden, waving in the breeze. So, Izuku asked, nervous laughter bubbling up. I just eat this. All Might declared, thrusting it forward with a dramatic pose. It's not exactly a ceremonial goblet, Izuku muttered, but he took the hair. He looked at the ocean. He thought about his mother. He thought about Bakugo. He thought about the man with the scarred face who might be his father. I am the dam, not the river, he thought. But today, I open the floodgates. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut, popped the hair into his mouth, and swallowed. For a moment, nothing happened. Does it take a while to? Boom. It wasn't a sound. It was a sensation. It felt like Izuku had swallowed a grenade. The energy hit his stomach and exploded outward. It rushed through his veins, hot and golden and screaming. Izuku gasped, clutching his throat. His knees buckled. Young Midoriya! All Might caught him. It's loud! Izuku screamed, his eyes rolling back in his head. They're screaming. The red lightning of his birthright flared, crackling violently around his body. But then, golden lightning erupted from his chest to meet it. The two colors clashed, sparking and hissing like oil and water. Hold on! All Might shouted, bracing the boy. Izuku arched his back, a silent scream leaving his mouth. Then darkness. The vestige world, the court of shadows. Izuku opened his eyes. He was standing in a void. But it wasn't the empty, hungry void he usually felt. This was a physical space. The floor was black smoke, swirling around his ankles. Where? So a voice echoed. This is the vessel. Izuku spun around. 7 figures stood before him. They were made of mist and light, their features obscured, but their presence was overwhelming. They radiated power, but they were angry. He smells like him, one figure, a bald man with a high collar, spat. Why has Toshi passed it to his spawn? It is a betrayal, another voice growled. We cannot exist in this body. It is made of the very thing that hunted us. Izuku backed away. I'm sorry. Welcome home, son. Izuku froze. That voice. Deep. Smooth. Terrifying. He turned to look behind him. Rising from the black smoke was a figure of pure darkness. It wore a suit, but its face was a blur of scar tissue and malice. It was the shadow of All for One, the genetic imprint left on Izuku's DNA. Don't listen to those ghosts, the shadow said, extending a hand. You are mine. You are a taker. Come. Let us consume them. Let us take this one for all and make it ours. Izuku looked at the shadow. It felt like safety. It felt like the easy path. Then he looked at the 7 ghosts. They were wary, but behind them, he saw a faint, golden light. A tiny, frail man with white hair was stepping forward, the first user. Yoichi Shigaraki. Yoichi didn't look at the other ghosts. He looked at Izuku. And then he looked at the shadow of his brother. No, Yoichi said softly. He walked past the angry vestiges. He walked right up to Izuku. You are not your father, Yoichi said. He had sad, kind eyes. You are the one who breaks the cycle. I'm hungry, Izuku whispered to the ghost. I want to eat you. I know, Yoichi smiled. But one for all is a power meant to be given. So take it. Yoichi grabbed Izuku's hands. Brother! The shadow roared, lunging forward. He is mine! Not anymore, Yoichi declared. The first user shoved his energy into Izuku. At the same time, the shadow of AFO grabbed Izuku from behind. The two powers collided in the center of Izuku's soul. The hunger opened its maw to bite. The stockpile poured itself in to fill. It should have destroyed him. Instead it clicked, like a key turning in a lock. Like a circuit completing a loop. The hunger tried to drain the stockpile. The stockpile regenerated faster than it could be drained. It was a perpetual motion machine. The AFO side pulled, the OFA side pushed. The friction created heat. It created power. The angry ghosts vanished. The shadow screamed and dissolved into the background noise. Izuku stood in the center of the storm. The red and the gold twisted together, spinning faster and faster until they blurred into a single, humming color. A deep, resonating orange. Equilibrium. The awakening. Midoriya! Izuku! Wake up! The voice was distant, panicked. Izuku gasped, his eyes snapping open. He sat up violently, his forehead colliding with something hard. Ouch! All Might recoiled, rubbing his bony forehead. Izuku blinked. He was in a hospital bed. No, it was his bedroom. He was tucked in. All Might was sitting on a folding chair, looking terrified. Inko was pacing in the hallway, sobbing into a phone. How long? Izuku croaked. His throat felt dry. 3 days, All Might whispered. You've been in a coma for 3 days. The entrance exam. You missed the written portion. But Nizu. I pulled strings. He's allowing you to take the practical as a provisional test. Izuku looked at his hands. They weren't wearing gloves. He stared at them. Usually, being this close to the lamp on his nightstand would make the bulb flicker. Usually, he would feel the pull of All Might's energy, even in his weak form. Silence. The roaring, gnawing hunger in his chest was gone. In its place was a low, steady hum. It felt like a massive engine idling in neutral. It felt full. It felt safe. The hunger, Izuku whispered, touching his chest. It's quiet. The transfer? All Might asked, leaning forward. Izuku reached out. He placed his bare hand on the lamp. Nothing happened. The bulb didn't blow. The electricity didn't drain. He closed his eyes and reached for the power. Immediately, the hum spiked. A rush of energy flooded his arm. The lamp exploded, glass shattering everywhere. Izuku jumped back. Whoa, you controlled it, All Might breathed, a grin spreading across his face. You didn't drain it passively. You chose to activate it. Izuku looked at his hand, bleeding slightly from a shard of glass. The red streaks of his own quirk were there, but they were encased in a soft, golden aura. He clenched his fist. The power didn't want to hurt him. It wanted to serve him. It worked, Izuku cried, laughing through the shock. All Might, it worked. I'm full. All Might stood up, striking a pose despite the cramped room. The equilibrium is established. You have tamed the beast, my boy. Izuku swung his legs out of bed. He felt heavy, but strong. The world looked sharper. You said I missed the written exam? Izuku asked. Yes. But the practical is in 2 hours, All Might said, checking his watch. Can you move? Izuku stood up. He wobbled, then steadied himself. He looked at the All Might poster on his wall. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. The green eyes were brighter now, buzzing with a power that could level cities or save them. He grabbed a new pair of gloves from his dresser, then paused. He tossed them back into the drawer. I don't need those anymore, Izuku said. He turned to his mentor, a fierce determination on his face. Let's go to UA. The bus ride to UA High was a blur of motion and noise, but for Izuku Midoriya, the world had narrowed down to the sensation of his own hands resting on his knees. They were bare. For 10 years, Izuku had lived behind a barrier of rubber and latex. He had experienced the world through a muffled, dull filter, terrified that a single slip-up would result in a blackout, a drained battery, or a comatose person. The gloves had been his cage and his shield. Now, his skin touched the rough fabric of his middle school trousers. He could feel the microscopic vibrations of the bus engine traveling up through the floor, resonating in his fingertips. Thrum. 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 Inside his chest, the engine, the newly christened equilibrium, purred. It was a strange, alien sensation. Before the transfer, his chest had felt like a vacuum, a hungry mouth always screaming for food. Now, it felt like a pressurized tank. The massive, golden stockpile of One for All, OFA, was constantly pushing outward, while his natural All for One, AFO, factor was pulling inward, trying to consume it. They were locked in a stalemate. A perfect, violent orbit. As long as the tank was full, the hunger didn't look outward. Hey, Midoriya? Izuku jumped, his green eyes snapping up. He had been staring at his hands so intensely he hadn't noticed the bus had stopped. You okay, man? You look like you're gonna hurl, a boy with a spiky red hairstyle asked, tilting his head. I'm fine, Izuku stammered, grabbing his yellow backpack. Just nervous. Aren't we all? I'm Kirishima Aijiro. Good luck out there. The boy grinned, hardening his arm into rock for a second before jogging off the bus. Izuku watched him go. Hardening. The information flashed in Izuku's mind unbidden. Quirk type, transformation. Durability, high. Likely susceptible to extreme temperature shifts. He shook his head, physically dispelling the analysis. The instinct to dissect and understand quirks was part of his father's genetics. A predator assessing prey. But he had to use it like a hero. He had to use it to save. He stepped off the bus and looked up. The massive glass structures of UA High glittered under the morning sun. The H-shaped main building looked less like a school and more like a fortress guarding the future. This is it, Izuku whispered. The hero course. Because of his 3-day coma following the transfer of OFA, Izuku had missed the standard written exams. However, due to All Might's frantic intervention, and perhaps Principal Nise's morbid curiosity about a student with such a volatile medical history, he had been granted a provisional entry to the practical exam. His written score would be assessed later, provided he survived today. Out of the way, Deku. The voice was low, guttural, and laced with the smell of nitroglycerin. Izuku stiffened as Katsuki Bakugo shouldered past him. Bakugo didn't look at him. He was focused on the entrance, his eyes narrowed in predatory focus. Kaken, Izuku breathed. Bakugo paused, just for a second. He glanced back, his eyes dropping to Izuku's bare hands. His expression flickered. Confusion? Disgust? Fear? It was gone in an instant, replaced by his usual scowl. Don't get in my way, Bakugo hissed. I don't know what trick you pulled in that alley, or why the teachers let a quirkless reject like you take the practical, but if you steal my kills, I'll blast you to Kingdom Come. I'm not quirkless anymore, Izuku said softly, almost to himself. Bakugo didn't hear him. He was already marching toward the orientation hall. Izuku took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the crisp air. He clenched his fists. The power inside him spiked, a sudden surge of golden lightning that rippled under his skin before he clamped it down. Control, he reminded himself. All Might said I have to visualize the egg in the microwave. Don't let it explode. Just keep it warm. He took the first step toward his destiny. The orientation hall. The auditorium was cavernous, filled with hundreds of examinees. The lighting was dim, focused on the eccentric figure standing at the podium below. Everybody say hey! Screamed Present Mike, his voice amplified by his quirk to ear-shattering levels. Silence greeted him. Tough crowd, the voice hero shrugged. All right, listeners. Here's the deal. We're gonna drop you into a simulated urban sprawl. You'll have 10 minutes to wreak havoc. You can bring whatever gear you want, as long as it's safe. Izuku sat near the back, clutching a crumpled sheet of paper with the robot schematics. He was muttering, a low, frantic stream of consciousness. 1-pointers are fast but fragile. 2-pointers have reinforced chassis, likely shielded against blunt force. 3-pointers are the heavy hitters, missiles, treads, gotta aim for the joints. Excuse me, a hand shot up in the middle of the auditorium. A tall boy with glasses and stiff posture stood up, the spotlight catching the glare on his lenses. Sir, the handout clearly lists 4 types of villains. If this is a misprint, then UA, the most prestigious school in Japan, should be ashamed of such a careless error. We are here to be molded into exemplary heroes. The boy spun around, pointing a rigid finger directly at Izuku. And you, the one with the curly hair. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're just here to sightsee, then please leave immediately. The entire hall turned to look at Izuku. Heat rushed to Izuku's face. Old habits died hard. He hunched his shoulders, trying to make himself smaller. Sorry. Okay, calm down. Examinee 7111. Present Mike waved his hands. The young man with the glasses has a point. The 4th villain is a 0-pointer. Think of it as a gimmick. A hurdle. It's huge, it's mean, and it's worth absolutely 0 points. It's an obstacle to avoid, like a natural disaster. My advice? Run away. Thank you, sir. The glasses boy bowed crisply and sat down. Izuku looked at the screen displaying the silhouette of the 0-pointer. It was massive. Run away, Izuku thought. That's what a normal person does. But I can't just be normal anymore. I have to be more. As the orientation ended and the students were ushered toward the buses that would take them to their designated battle centers, Izuku felt a light touch on his shoulder. He flinched, pulling his arm away instinctively. He wasn't used to people touching him without gloves. Oh. Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. It was a girl. She had a round face, brown bobbed hair, and permanent blush marks on her cheeks. She looked kind. I just wanted to say good luck, she beamed. You seem pretty nervous in there. And that guy with the glasses was kinda intense, huh? Izuku blinked. She was touching his bare arm. He focused. He could feel her biorhythm. It was a soft, floating sensation. 0 gravity. He could feel the pads on her fingertips humming with potential energy. The hunger stirred. Taste it, it whispered. Just a sip. No. Izuku clamped down on the equilibrium. He pushed the OFA energy to the surface of his skin, creating a microscopic barrier between his receptor cells and her quirk factor. Ah yeah, Izuku managed to choke out. Thanks. Good luck to you too. I'm Uraraka Ochako, Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. Well, let's do our best, Deku-kun. She waved and ran off toward her bus. Izuku stood frozen. Deku? Did she hear Kaken call me that? He looked at his hand where she had touched him. He hadn't hurt her. He hadn't drained her. A small smile crept onto his face. I did it. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were enormous, towering metal slabs that made the students look like ants. A crowd of examinees stood waiting, stretching, checking their gear. Izuku stood in the back, wearing a simple green tracksuit he had bought at a discount store. He adjusted his red sneakers, reinforced with iron soles, a gift from All Might to help with traction. He looked at the other students. There was the boy with the glasses, Tenya Ida, he had learned, checking the engines on his calves. There was a guy with 6 arms. A girl whose skin was pink and acid-washed. They all looked confident. They all had quirks they had practiced with for years. Izuku had possessed one for all for 3 days. He had spent those 3 days in a coma. He had exactly 0 hours of practical experience with this power. It's fine, he told himself, sweat beading on his forehead. I just have to use 5%. Just a tiny bit. Like the microwave. Don't explode the egg. And begin. Present Mick's voice boomed from the watchtower speakers. The students hesitated. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The crowd surged forward. It was a stampede. Izuku was shoved aside. He stumbled, nearly falling, but caught himself. By the time he righted himself, the main pack was already through the gates, dust billowing in their wake. Crap! Izuku sprinted. He didn't use one for all yet. He relied on the muscles he had built over 10 months of hauling trash on Dagoba Beach. He was fast, faster than he expected. He overtook the stragglers quickly. He turned a corner into the mock city and stopped dead. It was chaos. Explosions rocked the streets. Robots were being torn apart, melted, smashed, and laser blasted. The students were efficient. They were hungry for points. I need points. A robot, a one-pointer, a unicycle-looking drone with red eyes, rolled out from an alleyway, targeting Izuku. Target acquired. Terminate. It lunged. Izuku's instincts screamed. Take it. Drain the battery. Kill it with a touch. It would be so easy. He could reach out, grab the metal arm, and suck the electricity right out of the machine. It would shut down instantly. No! That's not heroic. That's the villain's way. Use the power All Might gave you. Izuku planted his feet. He channeled the golden energy. He felt it rise from his stomach, flooding his right arm. 1 for all, 5%. No, too much. 2%? He couldn't calibrate it. The energy was volatile. It surged. Smash! Izuku punched the robot. He missed the center mass and hit the shoulder. Crack! The robot didn't just break. It pirouetted through the air, smashing into a brick wall with enough force to shatter the masonry. Izuku hissed, clutching his arm. It wasn't broken, thank God, but his knuckles were bruised, and the muscles in his shoulder were screaming. He had used too much. Maybe 15%. 1 point, he panted. Okay. I can do this. He ran deeper into the city. The observation room. In a dark room lined with monitors, the faculty of UA High sat in tiered seating, watching the chaos unfold. This year's batch shows promise. Midnight, the R-rated hero, mused, tapping her chin. There's a lot of aggression. Aggression is useless without situational awareness. Aizawa Shota, Eraserhead, muttered from the back, his eyes bloodshot. He was watching a specific screen. That boy, Principal Nizu squeaked, pointing a paw at the monitor showing Battle Center B. The one All Might recommended. Midoriya, All Might, sitting in the corner in his skeletal form, wearing a suit that was 2 sizes too big, leaned forward nervously. Yes. He is adapting. He's hesitating, Vlad King grunted. Look at him. He has incredible strength. He just took the head off a 2-pointer with a kick, but he flinches before every impact. It's like he's afraid of his own body, or afraid of what his body might do, Aizawa said softly. On the screen, Izuku was cornered by 3 robots. He dodged with surprising agility, weaving under a mechanical arm. He grabbed the wrist of one robot. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. Watch his hands. For a split second, the robot's red eyes flickered. The lights on its chassis dimmed. Izuku yanked his hand away as if the metal was white-hot. He didn't punch it. He shoulder-checked it into another robot, knocking them both down. He refuses to use his quirk's primary function, Aizawa noted. His file says superpower, but the registry was updated only yesterday. Before that, it was quirkless or undiagnosed. But that movement, that was an absorption reflex. He is trying to be a specific kind of hero, All Might interjected, sweating profusely. He is trying to be a physical brawler. It is his style. It's inefficient, Cementos said. He has 12 points. At this rate he won't pass. Nisa sipped his tea. His beady black eyes glinted. Well then, the principal smiled, his paw hovering over a large red button. Let's see how he performs under true pressure. The test isn't just about combat ability. It's about the spirit. He pressed the button. The arena. Izuku was panting. He had 28 points. It wasn't enough. He knew the cutoff was usually higher. His body ached. Using one for all was like trying to ride a wild horse that was also on fire. Every time he swung, the recoil jarred his bones. And beneath that, the hunger was waking up. The constant physical contact with the robots, the metal, the electricity, the oil, was teasing his AFO's side. The sovereignty quirk wanted to dominate these machines. It wanted to rip the energy out of them and add it to his stockpile. Just one, the voice in his head whispered. Just drain one dry. It'll heal your fatigue. It'll make you faster. Shut up, Izuku growled, smashing a three-pointer's tread. I don't need you. Then, the ground shook. It started as a vibration in the pebbles on the street. Then the windows of the mock buildings rattled. Then, the buildings themselves began to crack. Boom! A shadow fell over the main street. Izuku looked up. And kept looking up. It was the zero-pointer. It was monstrous. A titan of green metal and gears, taller than the skyscrapers surrounding it. Its hand was the size of a bus. Its red eyes burned with the intensity of searchlights. Targets acquired, the robot boomed. Its voice shook Izuku's ribcage. The other students screamed. It's huge! Run! It's not worth any points. Get out of here! The stampede reversed. The students fled, pushing past Izuku, their faces pale with terror. Izuku's legs trembled. His instincts, both the hero and the survivor, screamed at him to run. Move! Get away! You can't fight that. He turned to follow the crowd. Oh wow! The sound was faint, buried under the grinding of gears and the screams of the fleeing students. But Izuku heard it. He looked back. Uraraka Ochako was trapped. She had tripped, and a piece of concrete debris had pinned her leg. She was struggling to lift it, but her quirk was exhausted. She looked like she was about to vomit. The zero-pointer was looming over her. Its massive tread was descending. It wasn't moving fast, but it was inevitable. Like a landslide, she looked up, her eyes wide with the acceptance of death. Izuku's mind went blank. The be-realistic speech vanished. The fear of AFO vanished. The points vanished. There was only the sight of a person who needed saving. Smash! Izuku didn't scream it. He just thought it. He launched himself. He didn't use 5%. He didn't check the valve. He just poured power into his legs. The concrete beneath him exploded, creating a crater. He shot into the air like a bullet, soaring past the retreating students, past the falling debris, straight toward the face of the Titan. One for all 100%. He felt his bones creak under the pressure. The golden lightning arced wildly around him, tearing at his clothes. He reached the face of the zero-pointer. He pulled his right arm back. He clenched his fist. I have to punch it. I have to blow it away. But as he swung, his trajectory was slightly off. He didn't hit the center of the faceplate. His hand, open in a claw-like grip before forming a fist, slapped against the robot's neck joint. Contact. Time seemed to freeze. Izuku's bare palm pressed against the warm, electrified metal of the zero-pointer's main power conduit. The hunger, which had been pacing in the cage of his heart, saw the door open. It didn't ask for permission. It lunged. This wasn't a battery. This was a nuclear-grade power cell designed to move 1,000 tons of steel. Izuku's sovereignty quirk activated at maximum output, amplified by the stockpile of One for All. He didn't punch. He drank. Ayawaha! Izuku screamed, but it wasn't a battle cry. It was agony. Torrents of blue electricity ripped out of the robot and flowed into Izuku's arm. It was too much. It was an ocean being forced through a garden hose. The robot's red eyes blew out instantly. The internal machinery groaned, a horrific, shrieking sound of metal seizing up as the magnetic fields holding it together collapsed. Kaboom! A shockwave exploded from the point of contact. But it wasn't kinetic. It was an EMP, electromagnetic pulse. A sphere of blue and black energy expanded outward, enveloping the robot's head, then its body, then the entire city block. Streetlights burst. The cameras in the observation room turned to static. The smaller robots on the ground simply dropped dead, their circuits fried. The zero-pointer didn't fall backward from a punch. It simply died. The massive machine went limp, its internal lights vanishing. The momentum of its forward movement carried it slightly, and then it crumbled, collapsing straight down into a heap of scrap metal, missing Uraraka by inches. High in the air, Izuku was thrown backward by the recoil of the energy intake. His right arm was black. Not bruised, charred. The skin was covered in the same black, web-like veins that All Might had described on AFO. Smoke poured from his shoulder. He was falling. My arm. Izuku whispered, his eyes rolling back. Too much. The ground was rushing up. He had no way to stop. His legs were broken from the jump. His arm was useless. I saved her, he thought dimly. But I think I broke the world. Slap! A hand struck his cheek. Izuku's descent stopped abruptly. He hovered inches from the asphalt. Uraraka Ochako, pale and vomiting, held her hands together in a release sign. Release! Izuku dropped the last 2 inches, hitting the ground with a wet thud. The silence that followed was deafening. The aftermath. The exam is over? A student peeked out from behind a building. The dust was settling. The massive mountain of the zero-pointer lay still. The air smelled of ozone and melted copper. Did you see that? He didn't punch it, he fried it. Look at the streetlights. Every electronic within 3 blocks is dead. Ida ran toward the center of the carnage. He saw Uraraka leaning over a crumpled figure. Is he alive? Ida shouted. Uraraka was sobbing. He's not moving! His arm. Look at his arm. Izuku lay on his back. His right arm was a ruin. It was purple, black, and red. But the strange thing was the energy still arcing off it. Tiny sparks of blue electricity were jumping from his skin to the ground, grounding themselves. Make way! Make way for the nurse! The recovery girl, a tiny elderly woman, hobbled through the crowd, pushing students aside with surprising strength. She reached Izuku and gasped. Oh dearie me! She knelt down. This isn't just a broken bone. This is extreme energy overload. His nervous system is lit up like a Christmas tree. She kissed his forehead. Activate Quirk. Usually, her kiss would accelerate healing instantly. But this time, when her lips touched his skin, she recoiled with a yelp. Zap! He's got a static charge! She exclaimed, shaking her hand. His body is holding on to the energy he took. He's a living battery right now. She looked at the boy's face. He was unconscious, his brow furrowed in pain. I need a grounding wire. Recovery girl barked at a robot, which was dead. She sighed. Someone get me a copper cable. I have to drain the excess before I can heal the bones, or his heart will stop. Ida acted instantly. He ripped a cable from the exposed wreckage of a 2-pointer and brought it over. Recovery girl attached one end to a nearby manhole cover and pressed the other against Izuku's charred arm. Crack boom. A bolt of lightning shot from Izuku into the ground. The boy arched his back, screaming silently, and then went limp. There, recovery girl sighed, wiping sweat from her brow. Now I can heal him. Poor boy. What kind of monstrous quirk does this to its user? The faculty meeting. The monitors were back online, flickering slightly. The teachers sat around the large conference table. The atmosphere was tense. On the main screen, a frozen image of Izuku touching the zero-pointer was displayed. The negative color filter of the EMP blast made him look like a phantom. We have the results, Nisa said, placing a stack of papers on the table. He destroyed the zero-pointer, Midnight said. That's undeniable. He saved the girl. That's rescue points galore. He passes easily, but at what cost? Aizawa asked. He stood up, pacing. Look at the data. When he touched that robot, the local power grid for the entire sector surged and then flatlined. He absorbed approximately 400 megawatts of energy in 0.5 seconds. Aizawa pointed at the screen. That's not super strength. That's energy absorption. And it's predatory. If he does that to a person? If he touches a villain with an emitter quirk? He could kill them instantly. He saved the girl, All Might said, his voice low. He was gripping the armrests of his chair so hard the plastic was cracking. He risked his life. He jumped when no one else did. I'm not disputing his bravery, Aizawa countered, turning his red eyes to the symbol of peace. I'm disputing his safety. This kid is a walking EMP bomb. He has zero control over the absorption aspect of his quirk. If he gets scared in a hallway and grabs a student, he has been training to control it, All Might said. He wore gloves for 10 years. He took them off today because he was ready. He blew up a city block's electronics because he touched a robot, Aizawa deadpanned. He wasn't ready. Now, Nisa interrupted, his tail twitching. Eraserhead has a point regarding safety. But All Might has a point regarding potential. Nisa picked up Izuku's file. He stamped it with a green accepted stamp. He passes. His rescue score is 60. His villain score is, well, technically 28, plus the massive assist on the zero-pointer, let's say 40. He's in, Aizawa scowled. However, Nisa continued, pulling out a red marker. He wrote 2 words across the top of the file. High risk. Eraserhead, I'm assigning him to your class, Nisa smiled pleasantly. Class 1A, keep an eye on him. If his hunger becomes a threat to the other students, you have full authority to expel him, or neutralize him. Aizawa looked at the file. He looked at the boy's face in the photo, timid, hopeful, terrified. Fine, Aizawa grunted. But if he steps out of line once, he's gone. I don't care who his mentor is. He glared at All Might. All Might swallowed. Understood. 1 week later, the letter arrived in the mail. Izuku sat at his desk, his arm in a heavy cast. He stared at the envelope. It was heavy. He opened it. A holographic disc slid out. All Might appeared. I am here. As a projection, Izuku watched the video. He watched his score. He watched the clip of Uraraka going to the teachers to try and give him her points. He cried. You passed, Izuku Midoriya. You are now a student of the hero course. The video ended. Izuku sat in the silence of his room. He looked at his cast. Underneath the plaster, the black veins had faded, but a faint, web-like scar remained on his forearm. A reminder of the power he had tasted. The equilibrium was humming again. The OFA stockpile had replenished itself, and the stolen energy from the robot had been burned off during the healing process. He was safe. For now. He stood up and walked to the mirror. He practiced his smile. It was shaky, but it was there. I'm going to be a hero, he whispered. Then, he looked down at his dresser. He picked up the yellow rubber gloves. He hesitated, then put them back in the drawer. He would go to UA with bare hands. He would learn to touch the world without breaking it. Or he would die trying. The door to Class 1A was enormous. It towered over Izuku Midoriya, a slab of reinforced steel, and with that seemed less like a classroom entrance, and more like the gate to a fortress. Izuku stood before it, his hand hovering over the handle. His palm was bare. For the first time in his life, he wasn't wearing his yellow rubber gloves to school. His hands felt naked, exposed to the cool air of the hallway. He rubbed his thumb against his index finger, feeling the ridges of his own fingerprint, a sensation he had denied himself for a decade. Inside his chest, the equilibrium hummed. It was a strange, constant noise, like a refrigerator running in an empty house. The golden stockpile of One for All, OFA, pressed outward, expansive and warm. The dark, gravitational pull of his innate all-for-one, AFO, factor, which he had named sovereignty, pulled inward. They spun in a delicate, violent orbit, keeping each other in check. Don't mess this up, Izuku thought, his heart hammering against his ribs. You passed. You're here. Just, don't touch anyone. Don't drain the lights. Don't break your bones. He took a deep breath and slid the door open. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! You think you can order me around, Four Eyes? The noise hit him instantly. It was the sound of elite excellence clashing with explosive arrogance. Tenya Ida, the boy with the engine calves and the strict adherence to rules, was chopping his hand in the air at Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo sat with his feet propped up, a sneer plastered on his face. But the moment the door opened, the sneer vanished. Bakugo's red eyes snapped to Izuku. Silence rippled through the front of the room. Bakugo didn't scream. He didn't explode. He just stared, his gaze dropping to Izuku's bare hands, then back up to his face with a look of calculating, simmering fury. He had seen the zero-pointer. He had seen the blue EMP blast. He knew. It's him. Usually, Ida would have scolded him for being late, but today, the tall boy marched over, his expression solemn. Midoriya Izuku. I am Ida Tenya. I must apologize for my behavior at the entrance exam. I misjudged the true nature of the test, and your overwhelming power. Overwhelming? Izuku squeaked. You destroyed the zero-pointer with a single touch, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. The faculty must have seen your potential as a heavy hitter. I salute you. Oh, it's the curly-haired kid. Uraraka Ochako popped up from behind Ida, beaming. You made it. I was so worried about your arm. Is it okay? Yeah, Izuku smiled nervously, flexing his right hand. A faint, web-like scar traced up his forearm, a reminder of the massive energy intake. Recovery girl fixed me up, but it was close. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice was tired, dry, and came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag like a monolithic caterpillar was a man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes. He sucked on a jelly pouch, staring at them with intense disinterest. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man muttered, unzipping the bag and standing up. He wore all black, and a capture scarf was wound loosely around his neck. Time is a limited resource. You kids aren't rational enough. He looked at the class, his gaze sweeping over them before landing heavily on Izuku. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota. The class gasped. A pro hero? This guy. Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds, he said. We're doing a Quirk apprehension test. The P grounds. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere on the field. The students of Class 1A stood in a loose cluster, stretching and chatting nervously. A Quirk apprehension test? Uraraka asked, tilting her head. But what about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his back turned to them. UA is known for its freestyle educational traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned around, his eyes narrowing. The softball throw. The standing long jump. The 50-meter dash. You did these in middle school, right? Quirkless prohibited. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the practical exam. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Aizawa tossed him a ball. Anything goes, as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He began to stretch his shoulder, a feral grin spreading across his face. He glanced at Izuku out of the corner of his eye. I'll show you, his expression said. I'll show you what real power looks like. Not some stolen, glitchy trick. Daithai, Bakugo hurled the ball. As it left his fingertips, he detonated a massive explosion. The blast wave kicked up dust, and the ball rocketed into the stratosphere, leaving a trail of smoke. Aizawa held up a device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! That's awesome! Kaminari Denki cheered. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This is gonna be fun. Ashido Mina squealed. Fun? Aizawa's voice dropped an octave. The air grew cold. You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be all fun and games? He smirked, a terrifying expression that didn't reach his eyes. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student with the lowest total score across all 8 events will be judged to have 0 potential, and will be expelled immediately. Expelled? The class erupted in protest. It's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered flatly. Villain attacks aren't fair. Yui is here to train you to overturn those unfairnesses. If you came here to play hero with your friends, you can leave now. His eyes locked onto Izuku again. Especially those of you who rely on power you can't control. Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat. He knew. Aizawa knew about the 0-pointer. He knew Izuku was a liability. He wants to get rid of me, Izuku realized. He thinks I'm dangerous. And he wasn't wrong. The tests began. Izuku struggled. In the 50-meter dash, Ida clocked in at 3.04 seconds. Izuku, afraid to use one for all and blow his legs off, relied on his beach muscles. He ran a 5.51. Respectable for a human, but mediocre for a hero. In the grip strength test, Shoji gripped 540 kilograms. Izuku squeezed the device. He tried to channel just 1% of OFA. Crack. The device shattered in his hand. Error, the machine beeped. Aizawa glared. Izuku apologized profusely, sweeping up the plastic shards. In the repeated side steps, Mineta dominated. Izuku just moved fast. He was falling behind. Without using his quirk, he was just a very fit teenager. But if he used his quirk, either side of it, he risked catastrophe. If he used OFA, he broke his bones. If he used FO, well, there wasn't anything to take here except the kinetic energy of the ground or the heat of the sun, and Aizawa was watching him like a hawk. Then came the ball throw. Uraraka got infinity. The class was amazed. Midoriya, Aizawa called out. Izuku walked to the circle. The ball felt light in his hand. He looked at the field. He looked at his classmates. They were watching him with curiosity. They had heard rumors of the robot killer. They expected something amazing. I have to do this, Izuku thought. If I come in last, I'm expelled. I can't lose this chance. All Might gave me this power. I have to use it. He wound up his arm. Equilibrium check. The tank is full. The hunger is quiet. Channel 1 for all. Just into the arm. Visualize the egg. Power flooded his veins. The red veins of AFO pulsed under his skin, overlaid with the golden glow of OFA. It was a chaotic, swirling storm inside his limb. Smash! He threw the ball. It flew. 46 meters. Izuku blinked. What? His arm didn't hurt. The power had vanished the instant he released the ball. It felt like someone had pulled the plug on his soul. I erased your quirk. Izuku spun around. Aizawa stood there. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His capture scarf was floating. And his eyes, usually tired and black, were glowing a piercing blood red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, walking closer. Even a kid like you was accepted. You! Izuku gasped. You're the erasure hero. Eraserhead. Eraser? The class murmured. Never heard of him. Aizawa ignored them. He stepped into Izuku's personal space. From what I saw on the footage, you can't control your power. When you use it, you either break your own body, or you unleash a massive electromagnetic discharge that destroys infrastructure. You're reckless. Aizawa's red eyes bore into Izuku's green ones. Do you plan to become an incapacitated burden again? Will you force others to save you because you decided to break yourself? No! Izuku protested. I just, save it. Aizawa kept his eyes open. His quirk, erasure, was active. It halted the quirk factor of the target. It put a lock on the gene, but Aizawa didn't know one thing. Izuku's quirk wasn't just an emitter. It was a predator. Hunger. Deep inside Izuku, the sovereignty quirk woke up. It felt the blockage. It felt the erasure clamping down on its ability to feed. It didn't like being caged, and for the first time, the AFO's side didn't try to take energy from the outside. It tried to take the thing that was stopping it. Grab it, the instinct hissed. Izuku's eyes widened. He felt a phantom limb, a dark, spectral hand from his very soul, lash out. It wasn't physical. It was a meta-ability reflex. The dark hand reached for Aizawa's glowing red eyes. GHH. Aizawa flinched. He stumbled back a step, blinking rapidly. His hair fell flat. The redness in his eyes vanished, replaced by watering tears. He clutched his head, a sudden, blinding migraine striking him like a hammer. Sensei? Ida called out, concerned. Aizawa looked at Izuku with shock. For a split second, while his quirk was active, he hadn't just felt resistance. He had felt a tug. Like a fish biting a line, trying to pull the fisherman into the water. He tried to steal erasure, Aizawa realized, a cold sweat breaking on his neck. Just now. Instinctively, the silence was terrifying. Izuku stared at his hands, horrified. I didn't mean to. I swear. It reacted. Aizawa wiped his eyes. The pain was receding, but the warning was clear. This kid was dangerous in ways Nisa hadn't even articulated. You have a volatile quirk, Midoriya, Aizawa hissed, his voice low so only Izuku could hear. It's hungry. If you lose control, if you ever try to pull my quirk again, I will expel you. No, I will have you arrested. He threw a bottle of eye drops into his pocket. I returned your quirk. You have one try left. Hurry up and get it over with. Izuku stood in the circle. He was shaking. He had almost attacked a teacher. The hunger was getting smarter. It was defending itself. I have to focus, Izuku told himself. Ignore the AFO's side. Focus on the gift All Might gave me. The connection. He picked up the ball. I can't use 100%. It'll break my arm. I can't use 0%. I need the tip. He wound up. He didn't activate the power in his whole arm. He visualized the energy flowing like water, down his shoulder, past his elbow. Just as the ball left his hand, he snapped his index finger. Smash! The air cracked. A shockwave blasted dust into the air. The ball shot forward with the force of a cannon shell, disappearing into the sky. Izuku clutched his right hand. His index finger was purple, broken and swollen. But the rest of his arm was fine. He turned to Aizawa, tears of pain in his eyes, but a smile on his face. He held up a fist with the broken finger. I'm still standing, Sensei. Aizawa looked at the device. 705.3 meters. He had beaten Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Aizawa's lips quirked upward into a terrifying smile. Ho! DKU! An explosion of heat and noise. Bakugo launched himself from the crowd. What the hell was that? Tell me what's going on, you bastard! He was flying at Izuku, his palm crackling with sparks. He was going to kill him. Scarf. Suddenly, the capture tape wrapped around Bakugo, binding his arms and mouth. He struggled, but the cloth was as hard as steel. My eyes are dry, Aizawa groaned, his hair floating again. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye syndrome. He released Bakugo, the cloth slithering back to his neck. We're wasting time. Next, Izuku scurried back to the group. Uraraka was cheering. Ida was nodding approvingly, but Bakugo stood there, breathing heavy, his red eyes fixed on Izuku. The betrayal was etched deep in his face. Izuku hadn't just hidden a quirk, he had hidden a power that rivaled the gods, and he had used it to humiliate him. The locker room. The test was over. Izuku hadn't come in last. Hagakure, the invisible girl, had taken that spot, though Aizawa revealed the expulsion threat was a logical ruse to draw out their potential. A lie. Izuku suspected, given the look Aizawa gave him. Izuku was changing out of his gym uniform. His finger was throbbing, wrapped in makeshift tape. That was intense, Midoriya. Kirishima slapped him on the back. I thought you were gonna get expelled for sure. Yeah, Aizawa-sensei is scary, Siro added. Izuku smiled weakly. He pulled his shirt off. Whoa, dude. What's that? Mineta pointed at Izuku's right shoulder. Izuku looked in the mirror. Tracing down from his shoulder to his elbow, beneath the skin, were faint, black veins. They weren't bruises. They looked like ink injected into his bloodstream. They pulsed slowly, in time with his heartbeat. The room went quiet. Is that from your quirk? Ojiro asked. Yeah, Izuku lied, pulling his uniform shirt on quickly. It's just recoil. Burst capillaries. It happens when I go over my limit. It wasn't a lie exactly. But it wasn't the truth. The black veins were the mark of the AFO Quirk stressing his body. It was the physical manifestation of the equilibrium destabilizing, the stress of the confrontation with Aizawa, the attempt to steal erasure, and the use of OFA had agitated the shadow within him. It's getting stronger, Izuku thought, buttoning his collar. The more I use OFA, the more the hunger wakes up to fight it. Hero basic training. The afternoon sun bathed the classroom in orange light. I am here. The door burst open. All Might marched in, wearing his Silver Age costume, striking a pose that defied anatomy. Coming through the door like a normal person. It's All Might. Kaminari gasped. He's really teaching us. Hero basic training. All Might flexed. Today we're doing battle trials. Rows of shelves slid out of the wall, revealing numbered suitcases. And to go with that, your costumes. The class cheered. Izuku grabbed case 18. He felt a swell of emotion. His mother had designed this. She had taken his crude drawings and made them real. He went to the changing rooms. His costume was green, a full-body jumpsuit sturdy enough to handle the stress of his movements. It had a hood with long ears, a homage to All Might's hair tufts. He had a respirator mask, to filter dust from debris. But the most important part was the gloves. Originally, his design had included thick, heavy gauntlets to protect his hands. But after the beach training, after the transfer, he had modified the request. He pulled them on. They were white, reaching up to his elbows to brace his arms against the recoil of OFA. But the fingers were cut off. His fingertips were exposed. It was a tactical choice. If he needed to use sovereignty, to drain a robot, to stop a collapsing building, to ground an electrical charge, he needed skin contact. It was a weapon he hoped never to use on a person, but he couldn't handicap himself anymore. He walked out into the tunnel leading to ground beta. Looking good, Deku-kun. Uraraka waved. She was wearing a tight pink and black suit that made her look like a space ranger. Uraraka. You look great. Izuku blushed, averting his eyes. Shall we begin, you zygotes? All Might announced. The class gathered around. All Might explained the rules. Villain team hides a nuclear weapon. Hero team must capture it or the villains within 15 minutes. He drew lots. Team A, Heroes Midoriya Izuku Uraraka Ochako. Team D, Villains Bakugo Katsuki Ida Tenya. Izuku froze. Of course. It had to be him. Across the room, Bakugo stared at him. He was wearing his grenadier costume, complete with massive gauntlets shaped like grenades. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't yelling. He was just watching, with that same terrifying intensity from the apprehension test. Fate is cruel, Tokoyami muttered. Ground beta, the building. The villains have 5 minutes to set up. All Might announced over the comms. Inside the building, on the 5th floor, Ida was meticulously clearing the room of loose objects. Bakugo, we should formulate a strategy to protect the payload, Ida said, embracing his role as a villain. Midoriya is powerful, but reckless. If we barricade the... Shut up, Bakugo growled. He was standing by the door. You guard the rock. I'm going hunting. But the objective is... I don't care about the objective. Bakugo snapped. I'm going to crush him. I'm going to prove that whatever freak power he has, it's nothing compared to mine. Outside, Izuku and Uraraka stood by the entrance map. We have to be careful, Izuku whispered, his hand shaking slightly as he reviewed the blueprints. Kaken, he's going to come for me. He won't care about the bomb. He wants a fight. So we use that? Uraraka suggested. I can slip past while you distract him? Yes. But... Izuku clenched his fist. I have to survive the distraction. Start. All Might shouted. Izuku and Uraraka entered the building. It was dark, the windows boarded up. They moved silently through the concrete halls. Right hook, Izuku thought suddenly. He always starts with a right hook. Get down! Izuku tackled Uraraka. Boom! The wall next to them exploded. Debris showered the hallway. Bakugo emerged from the smoke, his gauntlets smoking. Found you, Deku. He didn't wait. He lunged. Izuku rolled to his feet. He saw the swing coming. A right hook. Just as predicted, Izuku didn't block. He stepped into the guard. He grabbed Bakugo's forearm with his left hand, not the broken one, and used Bakugo's momentum to flip him over his shoulder. Slam! Bakugo hit the concrete floor hard. The wind knocked out of him. "I've been watching you for years, Kaken," Izuku shouted, backing away. "I wrote down every move you make in my notebooks. I know how you start fights." Bakugo scrambled up, his eyes wide with shock, then narrowing into rage. "You stalker! Uraraka, go!" Izuku commanded. Uraraka nodded and sprinted down the hall. "Good luck, Deku-kun! Don't look away!" Bakugo fired an explosion at Izuku. Izuku crossed his arms. The blast burned his sleeves, singing the hair on his exposed forearms. They circled each other. "You tricked me," Bakugo hissed, sparks popping in his palms. "For 10 years. You acted like a quirkless bug. You made me think I was the special one. And all this time, you were laughing at me." "I wasn't laughing!" Izuku yelled. "I didn't have a quirk. I got it. I got it recently." "Liar!" Bakugo roared. "You can't just get a quirk like that. You have super strength? You have EMP blasts? You have speed? That's not one quirk, Deku. That's multiple. Unless," Bakugo paused, "unless you stole them?" The air in the hallway grew heavy. Izuku's heart skipped a beat. Bakugo was smart. Too smart. "Is that it?" Bakugo grinned, a savage, feral expression. "You're a thief? Is that why you wear those gloves? Because you're a parasite?" He raised his gauntlet. He pulled the pin. "Well, let's see you steal this. Young Bakugo, stop." All Might's voice crackled in their earpieces. "That gauntlet stores your sweat. A blast at that range indoors could kill him. He won't die if he dodges." Bakugo fired. It wasn't a spark. It was a sun. The hallway was engulfed in fire. The blast wave tore the walls apart, shattering windows 3 blocks away. Izuku saw the fire coming. "Take it," the hunger screamed. "Absorb the heat. Absorb the kinetic force. It's energy. It's food. Eat it." Izuku raised his hand. For a split second, the black veins on his arm pulsed. He could do it. He could open the AFO valve and swallow the explosion. He would be unharmed, and he would be charged with massive power. No, if he did that, he proved Bakugo right. He would be the parasite. The villain. Izuku grit his teeth. He slammed his feet into the floor. He channeled one for all. He didn't absorb the blast. He blocked it. The fire hit him. It burned. It hurt. He was thrown backward, smashing through a concrete wall into the adjacent room. The smoke cleared. Izuku stood up, coughing. Half his mask was burned away. His costume was tattered. His skin was red and blistered. But he was standing. "You!" Bakugo walked through the hole in the wall, looking confused. "Why didn't you use your trick? The one from the robot? You could have neutralized that. Because I'm not going to beat you with a stolen power," Izuku shouted, tears mixing with the soot on his face. "I'm going to beat you with my power. With the power that was entrusted to me." "Entrusted?" Bakugo scoffed. "You're speaking nonsense." He charged again. He used his explosions to fly, closing the distance instantly. He blasted Izuku from behind. Then from above. Izuku tried to fight back, but without 100% OFA, he was outmatched in skill and mobility. Bakugo was a prodigy. Izuku was a novice. Izuku was beaten down. Bruised. Bleeding. "Uraraka!" Izuku tapped his comms. "Where are you?" "I'm at the weapon." Uraraka's voice came back, strained. "But Ida saw me." He cleared the room. "I can't get close without touching anything to float it." "Ida?" Izuku thought. He cleared the room? So there's nothing to float? Nothing. Izuku looked at Bakugo, who was charging up for a final blow. He looked at the ceiling. "Uraraka, hold on to something." "What?" Izuku turned to face Bakugo. "Detroit." Bakugo swung. "Die." Izuku didn't punch Bakugo. He ducked under the explosion, ignoring the heat searing his back. He stepped firmly onto the floor, pivoting his hips. He aimed his fist straight up. He let go of the egg. He let it explode. Smash! 100% one for all. The uppercut didn't hit anything but air. But the air pressure was a physical hammer. It punched a hole through the ceiling. Then the next floor. Then the next. It created a vertical tunnel of wind pressure that shattered the structural integrity of the building above them. On the 5th floor, the floor beneath Ida exploded upward. Debris, rocks, rebar, concrete, flew into the air. What the? Ida shielded his eyes. A comet home run! Uraraka shouted. She touched a massive chunk of floating debris, lightening it, then swung a pillar like a bat. She launched the rocks at Ida. Improvised weapon fire! Ida yelled, dodging. While he was distracted, Uraraka leaped. She floated herself, grabbed the pillar, and hugged the nuclear weapon. Captured! The buzzer sounded. Hero team wins! All Might shouted, his voice thick with relief. Down on the 2nd floor, the dust settled. Izuku stood there for a moment, his right arm dangling uselessly at his side. It was purple again. Broken. Bakugo stood frozen. He hadn't been hit. But he looked up at the massive hole in the ceiling, a hole that went all the way to the sky. He looked at Izuku. You! Bakugo whispered. You were holding back? You could have killed me. I wasn't holding back, Izuku wheezed, his vision blurring. That was everything I had. He collapsed face forward. The aftermath. The infirmary smelled of antiseptic and gummy candies. You reckless child, recovery girl scolded, slapping Izuku's uninjured arm. I can't keep fixing this. Your bones are going to turn to powder. She kissed his forehead. The healing process was exhausting. Izuku felt his energy drain away. I know, Izuku whispered. I'm trying. The door opened. All Might entered, now in his skinny form. Young Midoriya, All Might. That was spectacular, All Might said, sitting down. And terrifying. You refused to use your AFO abilities against young Bakugo. He called me a thief, Izuku said, staring at the ceiling. I didn't want him to be right. You are stubborn, All Might sighed. But you won, did I? Izuku raised his healed arm. The black veins were back. They were darker this time. They didn't fade as quickly as before. They traced a pattern that looked almost like a hand gripping his bicep. The equilibrium, All Might noted, his eyes serious. It's shifting. The more I use one for all, the more emotions I feel, the angrier the other side gets, Izuku admitted. In the fight, when he blasted me, it wanted to eat the fire so bad. It hurt to say no. You are fighting a war on 2 fronts, All Might said. The external enemies, and the internal biology. He patted Izuku's hand. Rest now. Tomorrow is another day, twilight. Izuku walked out of the school gates as the sun set. His arm was sore, but functional. Deku, Bakugo was waiting for him. He wasn't yelling. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. Kaken? Bakugo looked up. His eyes were red and raw. He had been crying. I watched the replay, Bakugo said quietly. You didn't use your drain. You didn't use the EMP. You just used strength. Yeah, why? Because... Izuku looked at his hands. Because I want to be a hero who saves people. Not a hero who takes from them, Bakugo scoffed. A wet, angry sound. You think you're better than me? Because you have some moral high ground? No, Izuku said firmly. I think you're amazing, Kaken. Your drive, your talent. I've always chased you. Bakugo flinched. I'm not gonna lose to you, Bakugo growled, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. I don't care if you have 2 quirks or 100. I don't care if you're the son of a villain or a god. I'm going to become the #1 hero. And I'm going to beat you to do it. He turned and walked away, his shoulders hunched. From now on, you're just a pebble in my path. Don't forget it. Izuku watched him go. It wasn't a truce. But it wasn't the bullying anymore. It was a rivalry. A declaration of war. Izuku smiled, a small, tired smile. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. He felt it. A gaze. Not Bakugo. Not Aizawa. Not All Might. Someone was watching him from the shadows of the city. Someone with a hunger that matched his own. The black veins on his arm throbbed painfully, a sharp, burning warning. Father? Izuku gripped his arm and hurried toward the train station. The red eyes in the dark weren't just Aizawa's anymore. The real darkness was waking up.